Hi, welcome to Thriving in Motherhood podcast. I'm Jessica Jackson, and today we are talking about what to do when your child has a negative attitude. Now, this question came from someone in our community. We'll listen to it in just a second. And her specific question had to do with homeschooling, but these are going to be the same principles and questions that I ask whatever the situation is, whether it's a negative attitude with myself or with another aspect of life when it comes to my children. So I would love for you to be able to listen and apply this to your life. Now, I would really appreciate your help because I went onto iTunes and had updated some descriptions of the podcast, and I don't know which change did it, and I also changed the episode artwork, and I don't know, again, what change did it, but when I saved it, I went back into iTunes and all of my reviews are gone from the last almost 6 years of podcasting. So if you've left a review before, and if you haven't left your review before, I would really appreciate your help to head over to iTunes and leave another review for the show, because it helps other women find it. And it also had a history, and I loved it because some of you guys had questions about or comments about how my breathing was too heavy, and that marked me recording literally lying on the floor on my back during pregnancy without any lung capacity, so sick. And anyway, and I've tried to make adjustments so the breathing isn't so heavy, but my point is it had really good things, and also the learning of the show. So I'm a little bit sad to have lost that history, but I would really appreciate you taking a moment and heading over there to do that.
Hi, I'm Jessica Jackson, and this is the new way to thrive in motherhood by leaning into who you are, what you love, your unique family situation and personal mission to create a life that you actually want to live. I want to invite you to join me in saying no to the life of the exhausted supermom, burnout, victim thinking, being pulled in so many directions, suffering through survival mode, or being lost in motherhood, and say yes to building strong families and moving forward on our greatest goals in order to create a fulfilling life that we are excited to wake up to each day and become a soaring mother. This is the Thriving in Motherhood podcast.
I want to take just a moment and share a free gift that I've created for you called 3 Secrets to Do More of What You Love Without Hiring a Babysitter. This workshop is available for you to go watch right now and start taking action on so that you can do more of what you want to do, more of what's on your heart, more of what is important to you with your children at home. You don't have to wait for them to be in school or for you to have loads of time. There are ways to start moving forward right now. And you can check that out at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/workshop. Okay, let's go ahead and listen to our question today for the episode.
Hey, Jessica. My question for you is, what is your advice on handling an 11-year-old boy who has a negative attitude when homeschooling? He doesn't, there are things about homeschooling that he loves, but then there are some things that he just has a negative attitude about, and it is kind of draining on me. So anyway, if you have any tips about negative attitudes, I would love to hear. Thanks.
Okay, I love this question so much, and also that comment at the end about how it's draining on me, because I feel that so much. Even if I weather the storm of the children and I stay like the calm flight attendant in turbulence, right, and signal to everyone that everything's fine, at some point I explode, right? I have to we not only do we have to learn how to manage these negative attitudes perhaps, but we also have to learn how to reset and refresh ourselves from them. For me, one of my favorite ways is just to go on a walk. If I can go on a walk, it will calm my mind, my body down, and I'm reset and ready to go. So just a side note, as we are helping teach our children emotional intelligence and how to manage their emotions well, that also means we have to learn how to manage our emotions well, and not just power through perfection and forcing ourselves to be good, but also learning how to just process through all the things that come at us all day long. So, okay, let's dive into this idea though of your child has a negative attitude about something, specifically homeschooling or something else, or maybe it's you. This is rampant in our home. Okay, not rampant, but we experience this also in our home. It's a normal part of life with our family. And I think it is with everybody, right? We all have to learn how to overcome a negative attitude. So here are the questions that I ask when I have a child that is struggling with negative attitudes. So the very first thing I think to myself is, have they eaten and how is their sleeping, right? Like, have those basic needs been met? And then I move to this third one. When was the last time they really moved their body? We have even started doing calisthenics in the morning, just 15 minutes before school, before we like officially start school. So after we do our breakfast and we clean up the kitchen, we've been starting to do some calisthenics before, because it just changes the mood of everybody. Or if everyone's really grumpy, we pause and we'll do push-ups, or we'll do sit-ups, or we'll go run around the house a couple times, because it's a way that we all just get that positive endorphin high. So check that, like, do you have movement built into your day? Are your children able to, build up that sweat and feel good because they move their body hard? All right. The next question I'd like to ask is, what is the reason for resistance? Kind of putting on our detective's hats and observing, what is the problem? Like, what's the real problem here? Is it feeling like you're not good enough at this thing? Is it hard for them? Is it hard to do? What is the reason? And under that are some of these, and the reason why is because we don't want to just label our kids. I don't want to just label my kid like, oh, they're lazy. Oh, they just have a negative attitude. Oh, they just, they're whatever it might be, right? Oh, they're just not good at that thing. I really want to get to the why of it, because when we can get to the root of the problem, that's how we can address it. Instead of putting band-aids over it or forcing them to sticker charts or points, like, how can we get to the root of the why of why they're struggling with this thing, why it's negative? One of the things that comes up commonly in our home is it's not enough autonomy, especially as my kids get older. Like my daughter that's almost 10, her big thing is like, she wants as much control over her school day and her schoolwork as possible. Now I'm still doing a ton of it, to be honest, and leading it and directing it and setting things out. But she is slowly saying, I want to do more. I want to be able to choose things. So for example, about how this can play out. Dictation is something that we do where I read something from a book and they write it down. And she did not like the things I was choosing. And so she went and got a picture book and wanted to do dictation from there. So we we checked it off for a day, but what I did is found a win-win. So I chose a book that I think is well written, that I would like her to do that skill from, and that it's fun to read, like something that we'll really enjoy reading together. And then she gets to choose the sentence or paragraph as we work up. She gets to choose the bit that she dictates every day from that book. So I chose the quality of literature. She gets to choose the piece that she wants, right? It's just enough autonomy that something that she absolutely hated and would fight me on, now it's like fun. It's fine. It's not a big deal. So that's an example of giving more autonomy. And there's lots of ways that we've done that in our homeschool day. With even just like, we've created like a daily planner page that I've printed out for each child, so they can see at the beginning of the day what they have to do that day. There's not hidden surprises, and they can check it off as fast or slowly as they want with some parameters, right? Like I'm like, if you want to work with me today to get this thing done, this is your window, so I still have lots of boundaries on my time and availability, but just because there's so many of them, I can't, it's just not a free for all around here. But again, it gives them that, takes me out as the middleman and just helps them see like, this is what needs to happen. So there's no surprises or less surprises. All right. And the next thing I like to see with negative attitudes is the environment set up so that it is easy for them to do. The thing that I want them to do is easy to do. I have a negative attitude if it takes forever to get something set up. It's frustrating for me if we can't find everything we need for math, or if I can't find a pencil, or if the notebooks are missing. So, whatever the thing is that you want your child to do, maybe it's sweep the floor or load the dishwasher or clean the room or whatever it might be. What is it? Or even for yourself, if there's something you hate doing, you have a negative attitude about it, how easy is it for you to do that thing? You might need to simplify the environment and remove things so only the things that you need are there. Or you might need to gather them up the night before and put them in a place so they're easy to find. Or create a permanent situation where things are always in that spot for you. So I would really explore, even if things are going well, I'm constantly looking for how can I make this more efficient by how I've set up the environment. Okay, this is really significant with homeschooling, but other aspects of daily life as well, for things that we want our kids to do, maybe they have a negative attitude about, is are the parts that I'm responsible for ready to go, or do they have to wait for me to get ready? Because in that space of lag of me not being ready and wanting them to, pause and come join me in a few minutes, my children inevitably have found something else that they're engaged and involved in. They run outside to play. They're starting to read a book. They've gotten into something. And I'm pulling them away from that now. So absolutely, there's negative attitudes in those situations. And to be honest, it's something that I've really am like having to work in to be ready to go. This morning was a major victory. I got up and spent just an extra few minutes setting up the room with all the things I wanted to do with the kids that morning. Gathering pencils, which meant I even ran to Walmart in my pajamas, to be honest. First time I've ever done that. But, made sure we had the right color and pencils, made sure the notebooks were gathered, make sure all the books I wanted to read and look at were there. All the supplies from manipulatives for a math activity were there. So, but this morning went great and everyone was happy because one thing just flowed from the next, and it was really fun. Whereas usually there is a lot of grumbling and that me not being totally ready. All right, the next question I like to ask is, what skill are you trying to teach? What is the specific thing that you are working on? So, for example, my kids, I really wanted them to improve on their writing. That was an area of school that we didn't really work on in those early years because they're not ready for it. Their hands aren't ready for it. But it became time to introduce that into their skill set. And they were not having it when I tried to do like your typical curriculum type things or like bring it into our school day. It just was becoming extraordinarily painful and negative and a sore spot for all of us. And so that's where I got really clear, did it really matter what they were writing about at that time? No, what mattered is that they could learn to write. And that's where we started doing our journals in the evening. It was wonderful. It was separated from the rest of their schoolwork. It felt special and unique, and we made it that way. I talk about that in one of our summer episodes and I can show you the journals if you want to learn more about that. But it really made it so that they learned that writing skill and in a way that was fun and unique. For me, it was like low, not extra effort. And it's become a wonderful habit that they have that I'm really excited about because it's a lifelong skill, something that I want them to do for the rest of their life is journal. And so I'm really excited that we put our effort into that. So as you think about what is the skill, the things that they might have negative attitudes about, get really clear about what that thing is and then see if there's a way that you can work it into everyday life to learn that skill. And then the last question, especially as these kids get older, as our kids are 8, they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and onwards through teenage years. I think it's so important during these formative years before we hit teenager years to start learning the skills of mentoring and partnering with our children. They are so smart. They know what they need to work on. They know what their weaknesses are. They know what their strengths are. They know that they have negative attitudes about things, right? They are smart. And a lot of times they don't feel good about that. Nobody feels good when they're not being their best. And they're very smart about it. So how can you, so partner with your child, have conversations with your child, read. Often imagination is the thing that creates the best and most effective change. So are there books that you can read that will help shape that character to bring that joy and imagination back into the story of who you want to become and why you want to become that way? And also really get clear about what are the principles here that they need to learn and understand to change their attitudes about things. We're always trying to get to the root, always trying to figure out what is the principle, what is the value, what is the truth that if our kids understood this, their behavior will change. Instead of focusing so much on that individual behavior, what is the root principle of truth that they need to understand? One of the ones that we use a lot, and I just started going through this with my kids. Well, when they were little, we did 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. I read that book many times. There's a big series here on the podcast. If you goes back, book club style, I discuss it with Madeline Casey. I love those books. It takes care of so many life problems if you understand those skills. And so when my kids are little, we have there's a couple of different versions of the children's ones. So I have ones for children and we read those stories. We talk about the principles. With my 8 and 10-year-old, almost, they're very close to those ages. We just started reading the one for teens, and I know they're young, but they're so ready for these principles. So I'm reading it with them. We're just reading a tiny bit a night and discussing it. But they understand the power of these habits, and that to be effective in their life, I want to equip them with the resources and skills they need to be able to do that. It starts off, we just read a poem about habits. It was a riddle about habits, and it described all of these things. And, when am I? And at the end it says, I'm a habit, or I am habit. And I talked about how it can destroy your life or make you great. And that captivated the attention of one of my children in particular. And I was like, do you have something in your life that's a habit that isn't going to help you? And he's like, yeah, that would destroy you. And talked about how they reacted with one of their siblings and they got angry. And we talked about well, what would happen if you kept that habit? And, what happens if that happens when you're at a job and, you get really angry and you're like, I'd lose my job. Right. Anyway, my point is young, these children that are in their middle years are so smart. We can have these conversations with them and help them see and understand in a very positive, kind way, what is working and what's not working in their lives, and help them get their mindset set correctly so they can live with a happy paradigm. That's a lot of the work that I had to do in my 20s to be able to feel joy in motherhood, right? And I want to equip my kids with these skills early on. Now, a specific book and resource that I recommend for those of you that are talking about negative attitudes in homeschooling is The Brave Learner by Julie Bogart. I have read her book a number of times, and she talks about bringing the magic and wonder and whimsy back into homeschooling, but also just cuts through the garbage of these ideals of what we think school's supposed to look like, and helps you see that there are so many options for education. So, for example, for the writing one, if your child's struggling with writing, she says things like get black paper and gel pens, or big sheets of butcher paper and markers so they can write it on the wall. Just helps you see 360 degrees about what your options truly are in so many different areas of homeschooling. So that is a resource I highly recommend if you are you're just I need help with these negative attitudes with homeschooling in particular, and you feel like you're running out of ideas. That is a great resource. So just to recap, when you are struggling with negative attitudes with your kids, or yourself, ask things like basics. Let's just start with the foundation needs. Are you eating? Are you sleeping? Have you been moving your body? So you've got good endorphins. Next, what is the reason for the resistance? What is the root cause of that negative attitude? And sometimes it's a habit, right? Sometimes we just need to directly say, hey, did you know, we want to, we're going to be positive about this. We can choose to be positive about things and to have a happy attitude. Sometimes we just have to ask our kids or set that expectation, we're going to have a good attitude about this. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Other times, though, there's a lot of layers to it. It can be they're perfectionists and they feel bad that they can't do it right yet, right? So this question is asked with compassion and love, and truly trying to see your child for who they are and what the real problem is. Next, how can I give them more autonomy? This is, probably should have said at the beginning, but this is something that I got even just from a business workplace environment when I was teaching adults. We learned something called andragogy. It's like pedagogy, but for adults. And we learned the power of autonomy. Adults need to feel in control of something to have satisfaction at work. And it's true for children too. The more that they own, it's true for all humans. The more that you own something, you feel like it's yours, the more you care for it, you enjoy it, you invest yourself into it. Okay. So how can you give more autonomy? Is the environment set up so this is easy to do? Are you ready with your part, or are they waiting for you and then you're pulling them back out of whatever they got back involved with? What skill are you really trying to teach? And how can I partner with my child in this and mentor them? And what principles do they need to understand? So thank you so much for asking your questions. You can still submit your questions. I love it when you do that at thrivingmotherhoodpodcast.com/podcast, and you can leave a little voice recording. Also, I want to invite you to check out the 2022 Soaring Mothers Summit. Yes, it is last year's summit, but I've spent a lot of time this summer setting it up so that you can have your own individual experience. I highly recommend inviting your friend along, and you have access to the content for the same amount of time. 10 sessions a day for 3 days, with a final bonus day where I wrap it all up. But I highly recommend checking out that particular session because there were a number of interviews that I did with incredible homeschooling moms that have been doing it for a long time about like homeschooling for connection and building relationships through these things. So that's another fabulous resource to go check out. And that you can do at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/summit. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I will talk to you next week. Today's episode is brought to you by the Thriving in Motherhood Planner. With this simple system, creating a life you love is as simple as opening your planner and grabbing a pen. Every day with the Thriving in Motherhood Planner, you will know what to do next, what's most important, and what to fill those pockets of time on. You won't find yourself wandering around the house wondering what to do when the kids are playing nicely for a few minutes. You'll be able to fill that effectively with moving forward on the things that matter to you. Follow the Thriving in Motherhood Planner's research-based system so that you can move forward on the things that matter to you, no matter the season of life that you are in. I'd love to help you get on a better path, one that leads to peace and confidence in your unique life with the Thriving in Motherhood Planner.
Learn more today at thrivinginmotherhoodpodcast.com/planner.
Where you are planted, watch the blossoms grow.